This is about the work that me and others have been doing in these villages. We started without knowledge in 1992, just by interest. Today we have discovered that this is so a big theme that we know maybe less than we knew before, but that's the typical development of knowledge, I guess. But we've been lucky to be able to work with people, our own people in this area. That was, first of all, in what was Skjerstad municipality, Skjerstad kommune, which 20 years ago became a part of Bodø kommune. So that's why we are now in the southern part of Bodø kommune. And so we started 30 years ago to work with. We didn't have any money, but we had some. Sadly, there was a big unemployment in Norway at that time, and some of the people had been working with buildings, like carpenters and so on. They went to. Some went to education, and there was established a special education in Misvær, where they were taught how to make log construction and some about restoration. The education was not very big, but it was a foundation. And then we got some money for people who were unemployed still, and then we could start to restore some building, and we got our first money for this work. And we have mostly been working with buildings that have a little or less economical value, but high or higher source value, or can be different kind of values connected to all buildings. But we call them, I used to call them the small gray ones, the små grå, for in Norwegian. Since this is about knowledge, and we have worked with a lot of gray buildings. There are not so many now as when we started, but some of the hay sheds have disappeared, and some of the storage houses too. And it's we've done. But what we have done is try to extract knowledge from the buildings, and we try to change them as little as possible. So it's like a book. If you take out too many pages of a book, it can be difficult to read it. Even if you think you are copying these sheets and put them in again, you might not copy in the right way. So it means that in the future you might not be able to read it. So that's why we, for example, have put steel roof on where there were turf roof before, without changing the construction too much. So we wanted to just keep them. So we have during the seminar, we were yesterday to look at some stand at the farmstead along Misværfjorden, and so your international guests have seen some few of them. So there are. So we have worked with also quite different other buildings, and 20 years ago we started to use these methods about dendrochronology, which means history of wood, which you have on this fourth poster, second from the right there. This text is both in English and Norwegian. So we have worked. So we have found dates on buildings. So you can see, for example, in this poster here, we have. The different year that the different logs in this specific building are from. So here's one from 1587, 1586, up to 1586, and then changed in 1899. It was built a little taller. So this is in Misvær Centrum. So there are more than 100 buildings that have been dated like that. So this is the best overview of traditional buildings in Norway when it comes to this kind of work. So, and it has been financed through many different sources. Yeah, it's a kind of research project, but it's also always very low. Worked on the trying to save buildings and then look into them when we have possibilities. So we also have worked from the first year we worked with the Sami buildings, and some examples you see here. We are not only worked in Skjerstad, we worked in the whole region and the whole Nordland too sometimes. So for example, is the Well, one very famous building is, of course, here where we have just visited, at Lyønes. And we have the Sami buildings here, and this is in Saltdal kommune, close to the Swedish border. It's border to Sweden, sorry. And this is in Misvær, and this is also in Saltdal kommune. And this is out in Givær, where some of us are going tomorrow, here, in the coastal buildings. So, Ave, what more should I say? So. Yeah, yes. At Mohus, the farmstead of Mohus, which is close to Misvær Centrum, is this quite interesting small storage house, Stabbur, which has been the tradition, as it's called, the Korshuset. And in the Middle Age Norway, there were a lot of cross houses, korshus, when you lived far away from the church. And because of the ice in the fjord and different things, and the men were away in the winter, there might sometimes be needed of some church. If someone died, maybe, or there were some baptized or so. But mostly just regulated by people themselves. And the priest was also far away, So there were, it's estimated, more than 2,000 cross houses in the Middle Ages, in the Catholic time. And then they vanished. And I haven't looked very thoroughly into that, but believe that this is the only one that stands. But this is built actually after the Catholic time, so it's a little tricky discussion. But the interesting thing is that this has been before standing just on the ground. In the 18th century, it was moved, and then it came these pillars under. Then it became into a storage house for grain, corn. But before, it has some, and we believe it is true, this story, so there are some written sources about it from the church, about this, and inside is this beautiful wall, who is painted with this paint. And this reminds of other places we have seen in this region. For example, of the vicar of Gildeskål have some of the same, and other places, but it's a very rare building. And we had, yesterday, we had our good colleagues from Estonian Academy of Art, Hilko Hiop, Professor Hilko Hiop. We have talked about it some years, and finally she came to look at this building and got very eager. So we might be able to make a research project, a documentation project about that. So it could be interesting to find out both what kind of, who could have painted it, when is it painted. But it seems like it's at least painted in the not so long time after it's built, actually. Even if it was moved, the painting seemed to be from the first 100 years of it. So might be from the 17th century in Norwegian, also 1600-tallet. And so we both maybe look at what paint they have used, and we might get help from Nord University to look into Nord University with Miriam. Look into could there be more written sources about it, put it into a context, maybe, it could be interesting. Because there have been written some about it, but never really done any real research about it, I think. So there's one more very interesting thing about it. When we was documenting by dendrochronology, also what in Norwegian is called årringeanalyse, then this guy who was working with us, the carpenter, who was very clever to analyze the building. We were working together, and then he suddenly said that it seems like it had been more men working on this building. Not only one or two, which is normally that two. It seems like many, because there are these different log hewings. This lofteknuta is made in many different ways, he said. The same method, but there seems like be many people. And in the written source from a priest who write this in the that's 120 years after this was built, he wrote that one of his predecessors have been into this thing, and the old building was demolished. And then they built a new one because the local wanted to keep their cross house. And that's just very theoretical hypothesis, but it might be actually written that they went together and built together this house. So, but we laughed and I said that, well, in the written sources they say just that. So it might be that that's just an idea. It's interesting to look into because it's very seldom that you see that many people have been working on one building. We haven't seen that in other places, and we have documented a lot of buildings. So, but just a very small idea that's for almost to smile of, but it's fun to look into these things. So, but it's a cross house. So then I have talked more than enough.
Talking about cross houses.
Yeah.
The